would you say that there's an importance for everyone to meet a true teacher in the outside?
Well, I don't know what, I wouldn't say on the outside, but definitely the true teacher is important for everyone who is seeking something deeper than what we are taught the world is. And that true teacher can be simply the presence of grace, the flame of grace that is within you. And it is said that if you are true to that, if you surrender your mind completely to that, that's all you need. If you don't, which was my case, I didn't. I could experience the grace, I could experience the flame, but still I wasn't quite getting how to be true to that. And so it's promised in all the great scriptures that if you aren't true to that, but your earnestness about being true is there, then there will appear a teacher in the physical. Someone you can hear, inform, speak words you can hear.
See, the one who's searching, the one who says, I want to be free, I want freedom, I want the truth, I want love, that's the egoic mind. And so this egoic mind has to come into contact with something bigger than itself. This is the teacher. And then whatever form, doesn't matter. If you're lucky enough to have a teacher in the personal form, then you have to deal with the personal as well as the impersonal.
What a fire. What a fire. Because if you have a teacher in nature or a teacher who is actually dead, you have strong fire. But you don't have this personal fire that Eli's talking about, which is very hot. It's very easy to trivialize the teacher or the teaching when you can see the limitation of the form. So it's a particular kind of friction that...
Which may not be needed. Ramana didn't need it. His teacher, his Sakguru, was a holy mountain, and there was enough. So it depends on the preparedness of the student. In my case, as a very slow learner, I needed very dense...
If there's arrogance there, it's needed. Ramana was not arrogant.
That's right.
Didn't need it. Papaji was arrogant. Gangaji was arrogant. Eli was arrogant. Needed. You need the personal slap. Even though it's not a physical slap, it's a personal slap. It's, you know, when I was with Papaji, after my awakening with Papaji, but just in the relationship as it was tending the garden, I was shocked at what I saw in this mind-body personality. I was seeing through his eyes. It was like, oh boy, I had just so neatly woven a little cover over that. Something pretty that wouldn't show that. And it was shocking, but it had to be seen. Who was I fooling? And in the seeing it and in the burning and the humiliation that's there, you know, it's like if you dump garbage in your garden and you walk by it every day, maybe you don't notice it. And then all of a sudden someone beautiful comes and visits you and says, why do you have garbage in the middle of your garden? It's like, whoa, I really have garbage there, don't I? It's horrible. Oh, rotting carcasses and bones and
I thought it was just
flies.
a compost pile that was already finished with flowers on top.
I didn't know anything was there. Been a totally negative hallucination. So it's very valuable. It can't be forced, though. It's valuable, but you can't make it, you know. You can't say, well, here is a teacher, so I will make that my teacher. It's much more mysterious than that.
It's deeper.
It's a love affair. It's an affair of the heart.
It's an affair of the heart, and you can't make it happen. But you can run from it when it does happen. That's more usual.
Or run toward it. That's the recommendation. Run toward it. Whether it be human or formless, dead or alive. Run toward it. It's the salvation.
So people give up the search too soon. It's like they search a little bit and they decide, okay, this is good enough, or well, what I found is all right, and I can settle here, or this is...
This is a teacher for some people, so it must be a teacher for me, too.
And they stop searching, before they get to the truth. Others find the truth and keep searching, and then go on looking for another one, and a better one, and a different one. As soon as this one gets a little uncomfortable, gets a little personal, gets a little...
Fire gets a little
hot. Like, oh, I don't like this. Oh, that one looks sweet, and that's really a friendly one. And they run and gone. That's the usual. That's the usual. That's the normal.
That's definitely the usual. I've seen that a lot. A lot.
What's a good sign that I can know, okay, I have found a point of truth? Should
it stops you in the tracks. If you know in the deepest level, it has stopped you in your tracks because you're hearing the truth.
Which is a humbling of the mind. The mind is somehow broken in its hold over this universe.
You can't go by your emotional experience, because you can have very wonderful emotional experiences of bliss.
Oh, yes.
And that's not it. Or you could have very horrible experiences with the teacher. Teachers, you can feel terrified, or you can feel blissful. With true teachers and with false teachers, you can feel terrified, you can feel blissful. So you can't trust your feelings. With the thoughts, you can't trust your thoughts, because you can have ideas that this is the right one or not the right one. Nothing to do with that.
Something deeper. When I saw Papaji, I really saw this bigness. And in his eyes, I saw a welcome. And it was a welcome, perhaps I'd been welcomed before from other teachers, but I saw it finally, so clearly, and I really recognized, I don't want to blow this. I'm being welcomed here. This is a true opportunity. I'm going to stay here. And just in sort of making that resolve to myself, then my heart burst open. So that's how it happened for me.
Yes. As soon as I saw Papaji, I knew. I walked into his bedroom, and there's this man sitting on a bed. I hadn't quite seen him yet. He was sitting on his bed. There was just enough room to walk in. He said, "Come sit down." I sat down on the bed. I looked at him. And I knew my search was over. This is what I've been looking for. Here I am, face to face with my own self. What else is there?
So if someone has found his point, has found his teacher, what he can do to be the best student?
Listen. Listen all together with one's whole being. And in order to listen, the stories, the mind has to stop. Just listen, hear what the teacher has to say, and then investigate it for yourself. Is this true? And so what this relationship is you see this force that looks like, feels like, you sense has the power to shake you awake. So it's a kind of offering yourself up to be awakened. It doesn't mean you offer yourself up so that Papaji or any other being says, this is what you eat for breakfast, this is who you go out with, this is who you live with. He may, I don't know, but didn't mean that in this case, and mostly that's how it gets interpreted. But it's a willingness to really attend to what is here, fully, with one's full attention, because that's all we have in this life, is our attention. And generally it's split off into so many different fragments. But to gather that attention together and focus it into hearing what this teacher has to say, and then you see even deeper levels. Either this is where I must be, or this is not the teacher for me. I thought it was, but on investigation I see it's not. And that's possible and legitimate. But none of that can be legitimate if it's mediated by this ongoing story and thoughts and, well, this, well, that reminds me, and what about, all of that has to stop so that the full attention is here.
We were leading a retreat this past week, and as part of the retreat, we had people watch a film. And there were several people in the group who had very deep experiences with us, very deep silence, but then the very idea that we wanted them to watch a film, well, this may not be right for me. This is not my teacher. Why would they want me to watch a film? I'm not going to watch it. I'm going to do something else.
So how deep is the attention then? Because the teaching, any teaching with any teacher, will get very uncomfortable because the ego is put up against itself. So there is a honeymoon period where it is just the bliss of being, and that's important, necessary. It's the bonding, it's the truth. But then what arises to challenge that truth is the ego, and so that will arise. That's natural. And in this relationship, that's the reality check for this arising of ego. There is a reflection there that is ruthless and strong and is the proof of what is true, regardless of the personality or the apparent limitations.
And not everyone's ready to have this kind of a relationship with a teacher. And that's fine. You know, wherever you are is where you are. Maybe all you need to do is just sit and absorb the energy for years. You know, there are people who come to my group and all they need to do is just sit in the corner and be quiet and absorb it. Just drink it in. Not talk, not ask questions, not do anything at all. That's very appropriate, and they know that, and they do that. And there are people who come and they just need to be testing and checking it out and see if there's something, they get some benefit. And that's fine. Whatever level you're on, that's fine. You get benefit there. If you're willing. And then it's really not about the teacher, it's really about the student. Because if you have a wrong teacher, but you're good-hearted, well-intentioned, and willing, you get some very great value. You have to see the teacher completely impersonally. The teacher completely impersonally is a reflection of yourself on the deepest level, and you see yourself, and you recognize this is my own self, and you surrender. And then seeing yourself on the outside, you then see yourself on the inside, and then you see yourself everywhere. And then there's the personal, because the teacher also has a personal. And how you relate with the teacher then on the personal has to also be the next test for re-entering your relationship with yourself on the level of personality.
So it's a normal process.
There's no normal process there.
Normal process is not to get involved in the first place.
That's the normal, right?
Yeah.
We aren't speaking of the normal. The natural process there forms itself. Forms itself. There are, for some people in the student-teacher relationship, the teacher has to stay abstracted and impersonal for years.
Maybe for the whole life of the
Maybe
teacher.
the whole time. Doesn't matter.
And some start out with the teacher being very personal. Yeah. This is Milarepa's story with Marpa, the Tibetan Buddhist, who Milarepa comes to Marpa for the teaching, and Marpa is sitting around getting drunk with his friends and doesn't care at all about Milarepa and gives him really hard things to do, and then says he didn't tell him to do it, and why, and makes him, Milarepa, build me a tower. And Milarepa has to carry the stones out of the river, build this tower for Marpa, begging for the teaching, and Marpa ignores him. He's getting drunk with his friends. He finally builds the tower and says, okay, I've built you the tower. Give me the teaching. And Marpa said, what tower? Why'd you take those rocks out of the river? Put them back where you got them. How many students would stick around to put the rocks back in the river? But he did. He stuck around. He put the rocks back in the river. Comes to Marpa and says, okay, I put them back in the river. Give me the teaching. And Marpa says, where's my tower? Now at that point, Milarepa could say, well, my teacher's mad. What's he see? What do you mean, where's my tower? I got to go somewhere else. But somehow, mysteriously, how rare it is that Milarepa actually stayed and said, okay, and once more built the tower. How many would leave before even attempting to build the first tower, let alone build it, take it down, build it again? And so this is where Milarepa first had to encounter his teacher on a completely personal level. And then was given the transmission, and in giving the transmission, the complete impersonality of the truth of the situation was revealed. And this is the mystery.
So that means it's a question of abusing is an illusion. So I mean, I'm coming from a country, East Germany, where it was a really deep wound for a lot of people. This mix of ideals with misusing of power.
There's definitely abuse.
There is abuse of power in all relationships, worldly, spiritual, political, social.
There's always a potential.
That's there, but these relationships are also there, and they can flourish great healing. So parents can be abusive, or they can transmit something deep and profound. Teachers can be abusive, or they can transmit something deep and profound. Yes, possibility is always there for abuse, and generally that possibility is fanned when the teacher believes in truth that he is separate from the student.
That there really is a teacher and really is a student.
Yes, so he believes the role is real rather than serving both a parent teacher and a parent student.
And then that's the guru trap. And the guru trap is the last net, as Papaji would say, to catch the fish. Because you're getting all of the signs back, and all the internal signals and external signals saying, yes, it's perfect, doesn't matter, it's a dream, whatever you do is right. You can do what you like. Papaji always said, do what you like, but then see. And so then this is the guru trap, to touch it, to abuse it, to take it.
To think it's something you're doing rather than the willingness of the student, the grace of the student. It's merely making use of your grace in having met your teacher.
Yes. So there's the grace of the guru, of Ramana, and there's the willingness of the student, and that's where the work happens. I know with my teacher, he was completely unpredictable. There was no way from one moment to the next to know what was going to happen, what he would do, what he would say, what was on, what was off, when we're going, when we're not going, what's happening, what's not happening. Completely unpredictable. Sometimes it seemed like he was right, and sometimes it seemed like he was wrong. But so what? It didn't matter at all. Because there was something deeper. Because really, what's called the student-teacher relationship is really there's no student and there's no teacher. It's really an intimate relationship with your own heart. And so in this relationship with your own heart, everything shows up, since it's the most intimate. The deepest bliss, the deepest exposure, the deepest fear, deepest anger, hurt, sadness, feeling left out, feeling included. It's all. But if it's a true, intimate relationship with your own heart, then whatever appears is useful, because it deepens the intimacy. It exposes what's in the way of even deeper intimacy. And so it's not about the teacher being right or the teacher being wrong. It's not about the student being right or the student being wrong. Both will happen in the realm of student and teacher. That doesn't matter. That's the play on the surface that allows for a deeper exposure, a deeper intimacy of what's untouched by right or wrong. And in this intimate contact with your own heart, it can sometimes be so scary or painful or overwhelming. The tendency is to be independent. Well, I'll do it myself, or there's no one here but me, or there is no teacher, there is no. If you're lucky, when that duality disappears, only the student disappears, and there's only the teacher. And so then temptations come to see how promiscuous you are with your own heart. I grew up in extremely promiscuous, acting out. Promiscuity is a lifestyle. Until I met something that was more important than my own pleasure, that was more important than my being right, more important than what I thought the next thing should be, the next encounter. I was stopped in the tracks by the integrity of my partner. And I had to examine this. Promiscuity is a way of avoiding what's already here. So this true falling into love that is deeper than falling in love was really the preparation that allowed. So when I met the final Sakguru, there was never a question. Falling in love, to fall even deeper. And I would see people come, and he said to me when the first satsangs were going to start, because no one had arrived yet, he said, watch how rude they are. I'd never been in a situation before, and I was surprised how he knew how people would show up so casually. Just once, this was one stop on a tour, it was one stop on a circuit, and after this I'm going there. And so in the moment of being there, it was not really fully 100% there. And so then there was wandering. We'd go for walks, and it would amaze me that people could wander off chatting about inconsequentials, when here was the living truth in front of them, and an old man who could die at any moment, the rarest thing I'd ever seen in my life, and they weren't so interested. More interested in talking about something else. This is amazing to me. His impeccability was he never said a word. He acted like he didn't notice. He didn't care. But he had to care. It's heartbreaking. And he did notice because he told me about it before it started. But you would never know. When you're with him, there was absolutely no sign. He was that ruthless, that he loved you just as you were and let you go just as you go.
Because the avoidance of intimacy, the fear of intimacy is just as strong, in some cases stronger, than the desire for true intimacy. It's life-threatening. I remember when Papaji had said he would come to the States, and we were so thrilled he was going to come here, And there was a group of us, a relatively small group at that point, around the United States that were setting up his tour and his plane ticket and a house where he would stay and the attendance, and how excited we were, and collecting money for that, and
put advertisements in the magazines, Papaji's coming.
Papaji's coming, yes, so exciting. then a couple of weeks before he was due to leave India, he called and said, "Not coming." Not coming. Okay. It's his call. Absolutely his call.
Although when I first heard that, it wasn't like, okay, his call. It was,
his call. Yeah, so there arises this, oh no, this time, these people we've told, the advertisements, the money we've collected, the money we... Oh, that. I know, because I was there was never any inclination to say, well, Papaji, you shouldn't have called it like this, or, well, Papaji, we've gone to a lot of trouble here for you. Because we had, by that time, been so profoundly touched by Papaji that he could have slit our throats and we would have screamed. But it was his call, his lives. Maybe that doesn't happen for everybody. Maybe it doesn't even need to happen for everybody. But luckily, it happened for us. And luckily, it happened for us with someone who
was impeccable with it.
And so outrageous. So ruthless. Couldn't care less what we thought he should do. Even though he said, I'm staying here because they don't want me to leave in India. And that's probably true. Somebody said, oh, Papaji, don't leave us, don't leave us. And he said, okay.
Okay, I won't.
Well, we were saying, oh, Papaji, come. Okay, no. So whatever occurs or doesn't occur here in these meetings is all due to him. All of it. And if you have met us, you have the potential to meet him. Truly.
Truly.
And if you meet him, you meet Ramana.
Truly.
In a way unbelievable.
When he introduced us to his master, we had no idea. No idea what was possible. But it's much harder for you, It's like when we went to find him, we had to leave everything behind. We had to close our business, sell our house, leave our community, move to a place where we had no attachments and no ties and no commitments.
And no influence.
No influence. And then so when we met him, we could give him everything. When I met him, I said, okay, here's my passport, here's my money, it's yours. It's yours. So it was easier for us. It's harder for you because you're in this setting of paying a certain amount of dollars to spend a certain amount of time.
You're renting us.
It seems like. You think you're renting us.
Well, that's the setup.
Yes, it seems like you're renting us, which makes it actually easier for you to make contact and harder for you to really make contact. Because there's nothing required. You're here for 10 days or a week,
well,
whatever it is.
There's a lot required. I mean, it does cost money.
Yes.
A lot of money. It costs the time. But it's as if that's what the payment is. That's not the payment. That gets you in the door.
So traditionally, the way it would work in the old days is you would finally have such a longing, such an unbearable longing for freedom that even though you have a wonderful life, even though you have a great family and a wonderful job and everything's working for you, it's still not enough. You would have to leave your family, leave your job, leave your possessions, leave your security, leave your life behind, and go off to find someone who could transmit the truth to you. Well, this is a momentous thing. Most people were not willing to leave security, leave relationships, leave comfort, leave everything behind. So we all learn to make do, to make compromises, to make deals. But for the ripe, mature soul, the rare one that says, I can't compromise, I can't make deals, as good as it is, as painful as it is, yes, I love my children, I love my wife, I love my life, but still, I have to leave it. I have to go to find the truth. Well, this was so rare because most people don't want to give all that up. But the ones that did, that willingness then took them off into an unknown, to travel through the woods, to travel through the mountains, to find some teacher that could transmit the truth. And maybe you went and searched for years, but finally one day, after sleeping on the ground, after eating hand to mouth, after just barest existence, you find a teacher, and the teacher says, stop for just a moment. You are that which you are searching for. It's done. Because the requirements have been met. You're ready. The field has been prepared, so the seed immediately sprouts. So Papaji would say, you know, there are these requirements before you go to a teacher. And I'll assume, since you're here, you've met them.
That's right.
Yes. And so, in my experience, people would go to Papaji not always for freedom, not having left the whole life behind, but they go to him and say, well, you know, I'm having problems with my lover now, and I've got another, you know, boyfriend back there, and I'm not sure which one I should go to, and what do you think I should do? And so the good news and the bad news is that you don't have to go off on a search, leaving everything behind to find the teaching. The teaching is now on television. The teaching is available everywhere. You don't have to go anywhere. This is the good news. But it's also the bad news, because the requirements to meet a teacher perhaps haven't been met. And so now we're doing it in the Western way. Wake up first and then meet the requirements. So everyone in this room has had the taste. You've all had the glimpse. You've had the essential experience. You've woken up to yourself on some level. Now, meet the requirements by being willing to face everything you haven't faced before meeting this teaching. Face it now. Call it up. And you know where it is. It's in a relationship of survival, comfort, sex. That's it, the first three chakras. So when Gangaji says, examine your choices, it's not about, well, should I have chocolate or vanilla? It's what choices are you making based on my security, my survival, my relationships, my sex.
My image, my status, my power. With all of those, the survival, the image, the sex, the power, There's a my with it. That's the sticky stuff. Because obviously there are choices around survival, just in crossing a street. But where it gets sticky and inappropriate is it's me. It's quite appropriate to notice the choice of survival, crossing a street. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't get in the way with discovering yourself. But once it's my survival, then just crossing the street properly is not enough. It grows. All of a sudden, there's more that's needed for my survival, and more that's needed for other people, either in giving me space or in giving me protection. So this is where the choice point is.
So we have spoken yesterday a lot of the role of the teacher for the student. What is the role of the student for the teacher?
Vigilance again. And the student is a constant test for the teacher. In all ways. If the student is adoring the teacher, then the test is to recognize that what the student is adoring is a pure reflection of that student. It really has nothing to do with the teacher's form. If the student is hating the teacher, it's the same thing. It's really some part of the student's self that has not been accepted. And basically the whole thing is to not take any of it personally. It has nothing to do with the personal. Obviously, as you spoke about yesterday, they're personal interactions, and that, yes, but at a deeper level, the most important level. This is a play about the student discovering what the teacher has discovered, and as Papaji said, and beyond that.
So the real challenge is to really want, and I do want, my students to go beyond me. This is so beautiful. This is what my teacher wanted.
It's the way it must be.
How could, otherwise, you're putting a dam up. You're saying stop. No, it stops here. No one can be, and that in itself is the egoic madness. That this is what damming means.
So finally then, the teacher is very aware of receiving satsang from the student. The questions that appear that are mind questions are the teacher's mind as well as the student's mind. And the revelations, they're incredible revelations, and they are revealed in just a slightly different angle that the teacher gets to participate in and drink from and realize.
But the teacher, in the role of teacher, also has desires. Papaji, when I first met him, told me one of his desires, I didn't say one of, but he said that, it's one thing to be a candle that lights other candles, but to be a candle that lights other candles that light other candles, this is something else.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
So there seems really no teaching.
That's right.
So what exactly is happening?
Papaji said that the true teaching is like a bird flying through the sky. It leaves no trail.
So, but what has happened between teacher and student?
Really, nothing happens. And in every other relationship, something is happening. But in teacher and student, for at least a moment, at least in potential, nothing is happening.
And this nothing is reality.
Being with itself.
So reality happens. It doesn't happen. Happening is a byproduct of reality.
Happening is the experience.
Yes.
It's really hard to understand for a Western mind.
It's impossible to understand because it's free of the mind.
Yeah.
The mind can never grasp it, never catch it. And the vigilance is the recognition of that the mind is, by its very nature, it's programmed, it's hardwired in to attempt to grasp what is presented or what is experienced. There's nothing wrong with that. It makes for a very interesting game. But the vigilance is recognizing When I think I have caught it, when I think it is mine, let it go and see what is left.
Wow.
The mind tries to take the student-teacher relationship and make it like every other relationship, that there's something happening. And then it puts it in the realm of thoughts, feelings, emotions, body sensations. Events. This happened, that happened, this should have happened, this didn't happen.
This felt like that. Good that it felt like that, bad that it felt like that.
But you can't put it in the same realm. By trying to put it in the same realm, you're destroying very much what it is.
Because as we were speaking yesterday, the very reason there's a teacher that appears in your life, this kind of final teacher, is simply because there's been some inability to be true to the Sadguru within you. So that is what's inseparable from you, that is now using some appearance, a physical form, whether it be human, nature, dead or alive.
You often speak about the lineage from Ramana, about Papaji to you. What's about people which are coming more from a Christian direction or Buddhist direction?
There's only one teacher.
So Satsang is not a kind of direction, it's not a kind of religion.
There's one teacher.
Yeah.
This teacher is your own heart. There's only one self, really. And if it takes the form of a religion, or it takes the form of a carpenter, or it takes the form of a Hindu, or doesn't matter what form. Really, there's only one.
And it's free of all forms.
And it informs all forms.
It's free of this lineage, Buddhism, Christianity.
And you'll find it's deeper than all lineages.
Our great love for this lineage, for Ramana, for Papaji, is simply an expression of, here is where these minds were stopped.
And then the gratitude can never be expressed adequately. What else? You know, you give everything and it's not enough. And then you see where you're not giving everything, where you're calling it giving everything, but there's still whatever arises, and then that's given.
Still more to give.
Yes.
Blissfully, so,
Yeah.
yes. Because we think it's in the receiving that we get our fulfillment.
Yes.
And there's a level of receiving that has to occur for one to be able to give.
Yes.
But it's only in the giving that there's real fulfillment.
But it's always a feeling that's not enough.
Yes.
That's right.
That's the sweet longing.
It's very humbling.
Yes,
Yes.
it's very humbling.
Yes.
It's always a feeling that's
How can it be enough?
no.
How could it be enough? You know, I could give my whole life to Papaji if I were able to funnel my blood into his body as he was dying so that he wouldn't die. Yes, take it. It's still not enough. It's not. Nothing is enough. That's the kind of torture in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a bliss that you find in torture.
Yeah. Otherwise, there could be again this pride.
That's right.
Okay, I
I
can
got
give
what
it
I
back.
needed. Yeah.
And I gave more than enough.
It's a deal.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
deal, right.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah.
But then something stops in terms of the transmission. And this is common, actually,
Yes.
that one leaves before the whole feast is laid out. And in this feast, there is an endlessness of revelation, so that now Papaji is dead, his body is gone. But the revelation that he implanted in this mind is the life that is Papaji, is the presence.
And if you feel you've given everything and it's finished, then you're cutting yourself off from your own heart.
Yes, that's a thought. That's the arrogance of the mind again.
One question more about the teacher-student relationship. You said before that it's necessary to be really full with one teacher yes. But for example, in my experience, I'm really full in the student relationship with you both, and on a other level, I'm a very deep connection to Jesus. I cannot say why it's there, and what can I say about it?
I feel the same thing. I feel I have a very profound connection with Jesus. I remember as a child having it, and I remember fighting it, and I remember it's always been there. But that connection was not enough for me actually to surrender to that connection even deeper until I met Papaji, my teacher, my Sadguru. It definitely did not diminish that connection in the least. It augmented it. It allowed me to surrender to this profound love I have with this great teacher. So maybe you could say Jesus is using Papaji, or Papaji is using Jesus, or Ramana, I don't know. As Eli said, and it's really the truth, finally it is one teacher using all forms, ancient, past forms, and present forms.
So there's really no problem unless you make it a problem. Unless you use one against the other. Use one to betray the other.
So how can I give it back to you?
By staying true to yourself.
That's it. Just by being true.
The deeper you're true to yourself is the deeper you're giving it back.
The more you give it away, the more you give it back.
Because I've, you know, while you were talking about being teacher-student relationship, whatever, you know, there was kind of, part of what was going through my thoughts was that over the last several years, I've felt like I couldn't have much conversation with you, Gangaji, because of the 200 people in Satsang or whatever. And I feel like we're having a kind of conversation that I have yearned for now, and I very much appreciate that. So, you know, I embrace, you know, total openness with both of you, really. And it's so precious.
Yes.
Yes.
It's tender, not defending.
And that's what everybody wants.
So I get to have, I have permission to have this kind of openness with you, which is beautiful.
But you don't need permission. You can have this openness, period, that would have whatever shows up. You see, if you need permission, then you say, oh, it's because of the outside that I'm open.
It's really your volunteering to be open. So this context is about opening.
Yeah.
But you could sit here the whole time and stay totally closed. It's a volunteer. And maybe it's just a slight opening. But in the honoring of opening itself, that opening is bigger. And in the meeting of the challenge of that, the testing of that, and the being true to the opening, it's bigger still. It's bigger still. And taking the consequences of that, because partners will leave. People will throw bricks at you. People will hate you for being open. And they'll adore you for being open. And still the challenge is to open more, more, more. And it's your volunteering each step.
See, the way the mind works it, it's always the outside makes you angry, and then the outside gives you permission for openness. then your whole life is referenced to what's going on outside of you. It's not just inside out.
That's the armoring.
So this is taking full responsibility. It's the willingness, regardless of what shows up, on what seems to be an outside. It's met.
And you know, in the relationship with us, you don't know what's going to show up, you know? Like, you've certainly seen I've wanted to wring your neck before. You've seen I've laughed at you before. You know, I've told you to stop talking before. But that doesn't matter. You are being open. You're being open. So what does it matter what I say? So the being opening then has nothing to do with being opening to control, because you've seen there's no possibility of control. But you have tasted the joy that opening is in its own right. And that's to be yourself. And in being yourself, there's a taking responsibility for whatever appears, whether it's attraction or repulsion.
Because really in the attraction, that's what you're looking for, is openness. A place where you can be open. And here's a fresh meat that doesn't know how cranky and
dirty in the kitchen.
Doesn't know you're dirty in the kitchen and cranky. And whoa, you know, for a moment it's fresh. You know, you have this
And that's true.
Yeah.
There's the truth there. Because really, the crankiness and the mess in the kitchen has nothing to do with who you are.
Yes.
Nothing. Who you are is this openness.
And so there's a search for it. And the pleasure of it. But the pleasure of it doesn't touch the true bliss of being open regardless.
Open to yourself.
Deeper than attraction.
Naked to yourself.
You know, the Gangaji, with you, I see that so there was a year or more, you know, when I was quite in love with you, and I think there was a kind of an emotional freshness and openness, you know. And then, like I say, there was what my mind was telling me is, well, you can't really very often have a conversation with her, maybe once or twice a year. You know? And I kind of let that, I say I let it go. Whether I shut it down, maybe I did, you know.
I believe
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Because it's not quite the truth either.
That's true. If I really had, you know, come and knocked on your door, I could have.
You would have been sent away.
Oh.
Because it's not, finally, it's not even about a physical meeting. What you want, what you fell in love with when you fell in love with Gangaji, because you don't know how I am in the kitchen either. What you fell in love with was the openness that you know to be your own self. That's what you want a conversation with. That's what you want confirmation from. That's what you want direction from. That's what you want relationship with.
That's what you're attracted to.
Yes, that is the only thing that's attractive, really. Finally, eternally. That has nothing to do with features or age or habits. Has to do with the truth of oneself. So what you want is a relationship in truth with yourself. And that's available 24 hours a day. That's who I am. Your own self. That's who you are. Your own self. Wanting itself. Finding itself. That's home.